My name is Emma Carter, a 42-year-old mother of two. My husband, Daniel Carter, and I built our lives around our two kids, Sarah and Liam, and our cozy home in a small, friendly town. Life wasn't perfect, but it was ours, filled with shared laughter, weekend adventures, and the dream of running a successful boutique that I had poured my heart into for over a decade. But one fateful encounter turned everything upside down. It all began on a quiet Monday afternoon. A woman I'd never seen before walked into my boutique. She was striking, with a polished presence that immediately caught everyone's attention. "Are you Emma Carter?" she asked with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Yes, that's me," I replied, trying to place her face but failing. She extended her hand, her tone suddenly turning more formal. "I'm Rebecca Fields," she said. "I've heard a lot about this place from Daniel." Her mention of my husband caught me off guard. "You know Daniel?" I asked, keeping my tone light, though a tiny thread of unease started to wind its way through my mind. "Oh, yes. We've been working together closely these past few months," she said casually, glancing around the boutique. "He's such a talented man." There was something in her voice that made me uncomfortable, but I pushed the thought aside. "Well, thank you for stopping by," I said, feeling an odd urge to end the conversation. Rebecca lingered a moment longer, her eyes scanning the boutique, before leaving with a graceful nod. That evening, I mentioned Rebecca to Daniel. He brushed it off, saying she was part of a new project at work. "She's just trying to make connections," he said, his attention focused on his phone. I wanted to believe him, but something about her visit and her familiarity with Daniel didn't sit right with me. Days turned into weeks, and life continued as usual. Or at least it seemed that way on the surface. But Daniel's behavior started to change. He began working late more often. His phone was suddenly filled with messages he refused to share, and his once warm demeanor had turned distant. I tried to convince myself it was just the stress of his job, but the seed of doubt planted by Rebecca's visit continued to grow. One Friday night, Daniel came home later than usual. I had waited up for him, determined to address the growing tension between us. "Daniel, is everything okay? You've been so distant lately," I said, my voice trembling. He sighed, avoiding my gaze. "Work's just been overwhelming, Emma. It's nothing to worry about." But I could see the worry in his eyes, the guilt etched into his face. "If there's something going on, you can tell me," I said, hoping he'd open up. "Emma, you're overthinking things," he said sharply, brushing past me and heading upstairs. I stood there, my heart sinking, knowing deep down that something was very wrong. The turning point came 2 weeks later. I was at the boutique, preparing for a big seasonal sale when Rebecca walked in again. This time, she wasn't alone. She was with Daniel. They were laughing, completely unaware of my presence until I stepped out from behind the counter. "Emma!" Daniel exclaimed, his face a mix of surprise and panic. "What are you doing here?" "This is my boutique, Daniel," I said, my voice steady despite the storm raging inside me. "What are you doing here?" Rebecca's smile faltered, and she quickly excused herself, leaving Daniel and me alone. "Emma, it's not what it looks like," he began, but I cut him off. "Then explain it to me, Daniel," I demanded, "because from where I'm standing, it looks like you've been lying to me." For the first time, Daniel looked genuinely remorseful. "Rebecca is complicated," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "She's been going through some personal issues, and I've been trying to help her." "And that requires secret meetings and late nights?" I asked, my anger bubbling to the surface. "Do you think I'm stupid, Daniel?" He didn't answer, and that silence spoke louder than any words ever could. The rest of the day passed in a blur, and by the time I got home, I knew I had to find out the truth for myself. That night, After Daniel fell asleep, I took his phone. My hands trembled as I scrolled through his messages. What I found shattered me. Dozens of messages from Rebecca, each one more intimate than the last. Plans to meet, confessions of feelings, and even discussions about leaving me. My heart broke, but I wasn't ready to confront him. Not yet. I needed time to process what I had discovered and decide what to do next. Over the next few days, I kept up the appearance of normalcy, but inside, I was a mess. Finally, I decided to speak with Rebecca directly. I called her, asking to meet under the guise of discussing a business opportunity. She agreed, and we met at a small cafe on the edge of town. "Rebecca," I began, trying to keep my composure. "I know about you and Daniel." Her expression didn't change. If anything, she seemed almost relieved. "I thought you might," she said simply. "What do you want to know?" "How long has this been going on?" I asked, my voice shaking. "A few months," she admitted. "But Emma, it's not what you think. Daniel and we never meant for this to happen." Her words only fueled my anger. "You mean you never meant to get caught?" I snapped. "You knew he was married. You knew he had a family." Rebecca didn't respond. Instead, she looked at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. Pity? Regret? I wasn't sure. "I'm sorry, Emma," she said finally. "But Daniel isn't happy." That was the breaking point. I stood up, my chair scraping loudly against the floor. "You don't get to decide what makes him happy," I said, my voice cold. "And you certainly don't get to destroy my family." I left the cafe, my mind racing. The confrontation hadn't given me the closure I'd hoped for. If anything, it had only deepened my resolve to protect my children and rebuild my life without Daniel. When I got home, I told Daniel everything. I confronted him with the messages, the lies, and Rebecca's words. He didn't deny any of it. Instead, he begged for forgiveness, claiming it was a mistake and that he wanted to make things right. But I couldn't forgive him, not yet. Trust once broken isn't easily repaired. I told him he needed to leave, to give me time to think. He packed a bag and left that night, and for the first time in years, the house felt eerily quiet. In the weeks that followed, I focused on my kids and my boutique. Sarah and Liam were my anchors, their love giving me the strength to keep going. My customers, too, became an unexpected source of support. Word of my situation had spread, and their kindness reminded me that I wasn't alone. As for Daniel, he continued to reach out, promising to change and asking for another chance. But I needed more than promises. I needed to see real change, to know that he was willing to fight for our family. Eventually, I agreed to meet with him. We talked for hours, laying everything out on the table. He admitted his mistakes, his regrets, and his determination to earn back my trust. It wasn't easy, and there were no guarantees. But for the sake of our kids, I decided to give him one last chance. Rebuilding our marriage wasn't a straight path. There were setbacks, moments of doubt, and days when it felt like we'd never make it. But slowly, we began to heal. Daniel worked hard to prove his commitment, and I learned to let go of the anger that had consumed me. Now, years later, our family is stronger than ever. The experience taught us the value of honesty, communication, and resilience. And though it's a chapter of our lives we'd rather forget, it's one that brought us closer together in the end. Life isn't perfect, but it's ours. And for that, I'm grateful.